I was gonna say
too much.
we can't say too much. I was gonna say we should go through and do a bad contract draft, but for podcasts.
Yeah,
And,
I was going to say bad contract draft for broadcasters. Bob Myers, #1 pick. However
this,
much they're paying you is way too much.
Too much. Yeah. That would be incredible. We could do it for podcasts too, and then we could sell it to Spotify as a reason for why they Bill took a 1 week hiatus.
Well, Bill and Russillo are back, and
they're back.
Luckily, they were back to do 45 minutes on Nikola Jokic because they've never done that before. I was like, I get it. He's the best player right now. He's been incredible. He had an awesome game the other night. But we have heard that podcast from them like 10 different times. I'm like, and I know this is a bit hypocritical because we do a lot of the same content. Someone even tweeted at me and they were like, wait, didn't you just do the worst contracts? And they're like, oh no, that was the worst rotation players. I was like, yeah, we're double dipping a little bit.
But. Yeah, it's, it's not 1-to-1, all those guys who don't make a lot of money, they're off the hook.
Exactly.
This one is brought to you by the NBA Owners Association. This is, look at all these wasted resources that could go to entrepreneurs.
Exactly. Yeah. This is actually directly funded by the Adelsons. You know that they always have their hand in media. So
yeah, the 10 that we draft, they're getting their contracts voided, and the money is going to a Shark Tank contestant who came up with the self-flipping burger. It's going to be great ideas like that.
I mean, why do you think on the last episode I said that the Mavericks are contenders that could make the conference finals? I've changed my opinion all of a sudden. Do you think that's a coincidence? I'm just saying.
Trill said that, and then Wendy's introduced surge pricing. I'm just saying, connect the dots here.
Connect the dots. It's
who
all.
Are we working for? Really?
It's all linked here.
Yeah. Mr. Policeman, we gave you all the clues.
Yeah. So if you want to hear that episode, subscribe to the Patreon.
Yeah.
We have bonus episodes every week on there. That was actually a really fun episode. We talked about JJ Redick, the state of NBA media, and then we did a bunch of hot takes from the Uniball Discord, which you also can join if you are part of the Patreon. But let's get into today's episode, which is the bad contracts draft. Now, I have a list here because there are some people that are sadly graduating from the bad contracts draft. Because the large majority of these guys were guys that were either considered last year or they were actually drafted last year, and they are currently about to be expiring contracts. But their contracts are so bad that I think that they should get a little shout out up here at the top. So this is the deals that we can retire from the bad contract draft. Number 1, Tobias Harris.
It's been a long
I literally was thinking the same thing.
Without you, my friend, I tell you all about it. Yeah, that one's been there for a while. That is Paul Walker in the car. I mean, when in 15 years, when people are looking back on this era, that will be one of the most confusing contracts of all time, because almost any other contract, you can justify why they got so much money. Like the 2016 cap spike would explain certain contracts. John Wall's contract being so bad, the Supermax he got being so bad is, wouldn't have been as terrible if he didn't get injured. There's so many bad contracts that have been out there that, were either former All-Stars or guys that were getting rookie extensions that just never lived up to the hype. The cap spike thing, there's always these reasons. Tobias still is probably will go down as one of the worst contracts ever, just because of the fact that he didn't deserve it in the first place. And then also, he didn't have any sort of outlier reason for why it happened, other than the fact that the team didn't want to pay Jimmy Butler. And that was it. It was like, well, we didn't pay Jimmy Butler. We just traded for Tobias and Jimmy, so we have to keep one of them. So let's keep Tobias over Jimmy, which obviously turned out to be a historically bad mistake, as Jimmy has gone on to be obviously much better and much more worth the contract that he was on. with the Miami Heat. So it blew my mind the other day seeing someone tweet that Tobias Harris makes $400,000 a game.
That's
because he makes $40 million this year.
That's a lot of crumble cookies.
That's a lot. Yeah, they could use it right now. I don't know if you've seen the recent news, but yeah, it was. And as it comes to an end here, an honorary shout out to a terrible contract. Well, he's in the worst stretch that he's ever played for the Sixers, too. Doesn't help. He's had like 3 or 4 of his worst games as a Sixer, most recently coming against the Bucks this past Sunday. Horribly slow decision maker. Just abandoned shooting threes for some reason that has not been explained at all. And even when he does shoot them, they don't go in anymore. Just has messed up the entire flow of the Sixers offense anytime he's on the court. The only thing he's kind of passable at now is like mid-range shots and post defense, which is just not valuable in 2024. If you're not elite at both of those things and also have complementary skills that fit within a winning team. So the Detroit Pistons, I'm warning you right now, if you sign Tobias Harris to a contract that is worth more than the mid-level exception after this season, you will massively regret that deal. I know it's like, well, it's the Pistons. Who cares? Maybe they'll win a few extra games. Do not sign Tobias Harris to that contract. If any team gives him more than the MLE at this point, he's already a flawed player. He doesn't fit on winning teams. And if you add on to the fact that he is aging and is not a high field player or a great athlete, there's potential for his next contract to be even worse than this one somehow if he makes like $20 million a year on his next deal. So do not do that. So I would completely stay away from that if I were the Detroit Pistons, but he deserved a shout out. Another one on here, someone who just did not live up to the hype of the contract that they got. Gordon Hayward, never available. When he was, solid but declining for a mid to bad team in Charlotte for most of the time he was there. There's really just nothing. He never lived up to the hype of his contract that he got there.
Yeah, bagman. He took his career. Once he started getting injured, he became a bagman. So shout out to him for getting that bag, though. I mean, he did secure the bag.
Yeah.
Snuck that last one in before Jordan rode off into the sunset. So
yeah, really big for him, because the campaign cycles and donations for those.
Very important for him to get that money.
He got it in 2020, so he got to hit the 2020 and the 2024 Trump cycles in his donation. So that's great for those politicians that are running for office.
I want to defend Gordon because I don't think he's a Trump guy. He definitely contributed to investigative journalism and freedom of information acts for Gamergate, though.
Yes.
Yeah, he was definitely very active in Gamergate and wanted to know what Anita Sarkeesian was up to. So
for sure. Yeah. If he really broke it down, he'd probably be like a boring DeSantis guy or something. He wouldn't even be. He's not even absurd enough to be a Trump guy, which is just the funniest part of him.
He flips a coin to decide whether or not he's voting for Pete Buttigieg or Marco Rubio.
So. Yeah, Indiana connection too with Pete Buttigieg. Good call.
Yeah.
So next on here, someone who at the time of the contract you understood why he got it because of his career and what he means to his team, but ultimately did not live up to it. Klay Thompson. Klay Thompson retiring from the bad contract draft here, unless a team throws a bag at him, because I'm pretty certain Tobias might get a bag. Mm-hmm. Hayward might get a bag just to get traded by OKC. Mm-hmm. I'm fairly certain Klay is just going to take a pay cut to stay with the Warriors at this point.
Probably, yeah.
Based on everything he said.
And they'll probably give him more money than other people will. Condition on it. He's going to
make like $18 million a year or something with them.
Right. And he gets to kind of, he kind of gets the pride, get out of jail free card where it's I sacrificed for the team because that's
exactly
how much the Warriors mean. Yeah. You don't have to suffer the indignity of making $23 million for the Hornets or something like that. And
losing
$1 billion games.
The legacy piece house.
Yeah, exactly.
Good guy riding off into the sunset. He basically has said in interviews he's fine with doing like the Ray Allen role, even though he hasn't really shown that, other than the fact that he was willing to come off the bench. It might not have been his idea, but he did ultimately accept it. And then in addition to that, the fact that he keeps saying in these interviews he wants to be a warrior for life, he wants to make something work. I don't really see a team throwing a bag at him at all in free agency. I really don't think that there are enough teams with cap space, and no one would give up real stuff to get him in a sign-in trade. So there's basically no way, unless one of these teams is stupid enough to overpay for, a guy that's in the latter years of his career, will probably be a bench shooter for the rest of his career if he's on a good team. So maybe like the Magic, the Spurs, the Pistons or whatever, throw him like $20 million a year. But what's the difference really at that point? He's made a ton of money in his career, which is why he's being mentioned here in general. And then a few other names here that are currently expiring. Evan Fournier.
I was going to say that was one I had on my list for honorable mentions.
Non-guaranteed next year. He might even get that money guaranteed, just like if Detroit does nothing in free agency, or they want to make a trade and they want to, but ultimately that money's only being guaranteed next year if he is a trade chip. Like he's not someone who's going to add anything to your team at this point in his career. He is just, he's a fringe rotation player that was making $18 million a year, a 9th or 10th man on like a mid team. And he's playing for the Pistons right now, but Monty is just addicted to playing bad players. It's like, I was watching the Knicks game last night against the Pistons, and they got completely fucked in that game. But another person who I had in my honorable mentions, James Wiseman, was also playing big minutes for them in that game. Malachi Flynn was playing big minutes for them in that game. Evan Fournier was playing big minutes for them in that game. I just think that Evan Fournier's playing days as an NBA player are over unless he is either a trade chip or he gets a veteran's minimum after this year, if he even wants to stay here.
Wiseman making this list on his rookie contract is really
amazing.
Impressive. That's really impressive. Yeah.
But he was the number 2 pick.
Right.
So the money is actually a lot. Like that was the funniest part about the whole Wiseman thing is like, and Troy Weaver even said he admitted to this mistake, like with the Bagley and Wiseman moves, which is basically that you don't pay, like it's fine to take reclamation project flyers on guys.
Yeah.
It's not fine to pay those guys before they've proven anything. Like he makes $12.1 million this year. And best case scenario for him when they traded for him was that he was a backup, and he's probably not even that. And you should never pay that guy $12.1 million. So that is, once again, expiring deal. If he does go back to Detroit next year, which I hope for their sake that they just let him go. But if he does go back, it will probably be on a veteran's minimum. I don't think that there's any chance he's getting more than that. I don't even think he could get like the tax MLE from a team. Like he's not a guy at all. And then the last one on here of my honorable mentions, Victor Oladipo just never really played, was never really healthy on this deal. I mean, he's another guy that's expiring, but it's not really his fault. He was just always hurt, and he's kind of washed now because of all the injuries that piled up over the years. And Miami gave him like a bloated 2-year deal to, see if he had anything left, and it turned out he didn't. So unfortunate that Oladipo had to be on here, but it is what it is. And then I have a list here, just real quick. We'll breeze over this. Guys bought out of their current deals. Cam Payne on the Sixers, Kyle Lowry on the Sixers now.
Yeah.
Joe Harris, who just got bought out. Gallo, who just got bought out, also both by the Pistons. Killian Hayes by the Pistons on his rookie contract, by the way, 2020, another one. And Spencer Dinwiddie, who was traded and bought out as well and was making like $21 million a year. Like it's a lot of money for Spencer Dinwiddie. Like, I mean, Spencer's at one point was a fine player on this contract. Like he was decent for the Mavs, but I don't think that if he hit like free, like he's nothing more than a vet min guy, maybe a slight like half of the tax MLE, like
I was going to
$3
say
or $4 million.
The room mid-level exception guy.
With the way that he played for the Lakers, probably not even. I think he's just a vet min guy from now on.
The other two bad contracts being retired this year I have on my list are shout out to Davis Bertans.
Oh my God, I forgot about Davis Bertans
and Devontae Graham, both exiting this year. There's some light non-guarantees on those, but those guys were staples in the bad contract draft. Really sad to see those.
Yeah, legends.
Go. Yeah,
veterans of this thing that we have here, the bad contract draft. The thing about the Davis Bertans contract, someone can correct me if I'm wrong here.
Yeah.
OKC did rework his contract, so he might get a partial guarantee next year even. Because at one point OKC reworked his deal, because originally it was like if he played like 30 games, the deal got guaranteed, but I think they reworked his deal to get him a partial guarantee. So it's possible that Charlotte even has to buy him out of extra money next year just to get him at $5 million fully guaranteed. There you go.
Yeah, $5 million. No, yeah, 5.25. So he got an extra 2.5 million, according to Keith Smith. Yeah.
So he got an extra. So a horrible contract that was bad the whole time from the second he signed it. It was like 5 years, 90 million, I think, when he signed it. Yeah. And he didn't last the whole thing because he's been traded twice now, 3 times maybe. I don't know. He's been traded a lot. But long story short on this, he has now gotten an extra 5 million out of this and probably will be playing in Europe next year. So shout out to him. And then 2 honorary ones that, once again, not part of this draft, but just needed to be noted. Kemba Walker was still technically getting paid this year, I think.
Yeah, because he got stretched, right?
I think he got stretched and bought out by the Pistons. Oh wait, no. I think Kemba's deal was actually done this year. It was last year. John Wall was the one that I wanted to bring up. Not John Wall's Supermax, which he got bought out of 2 years ago. But John Wall signed a 2-year deal with the Clippers for like the tax MLE. It was like $6.2 million per year. He got released and never played after he was cut last year. So just some honorary names that needed to be thrown out there. I think Kemba actually was technically done this year, but still, so just some amazing bags that these guys got at the end of their career, and half of them didn't even have to play for these contracts. Like they were just bench warmers for the majority of their deals. So it's amazing how many deals at one point were on the Pistons that we just went through.
Yeah.
James Wiseman, Evan Fournier currently, Joe Harris, Killian Hayes, like so many bad ones.
Not to mention they have arguably what might be the worst contract of all time, like given the proportionate to what was going on at the time. The Josh Smith contract and the subsequent stretching of his contract.
Yes.
Josh Smith was getting paid up until like 2019.
Amazing.
And I think like the last time he played for them was like it was years and years, because
it was like 5 years. I think he was like,
because he was already on the Rockets in 2017 or 2016 or whatever that was when he hit all the threes, the Harden game where it unreal. That's for my money still the worst contract. And then they also had the Blake Griffin contract, which was not the Pistons' fault, but they took it. So
And by the way, also famously Troy Weaver. So Troy Weaver during his whole tenure would take on bad contracts, but not get anything to take on the contracts. Like he gave up value to get Marvin Bagley and sign him. He gave up value to get James Wiseman. And then even worse, like every time the Nets needed to dump a contract, they just dumped it on did you realize that they dumped 3 different contracts on the Pistons?
Joe Harris,
DeAndre Jordan, who was in the second year of a 4-year deal where he was making $11 million every single year, and they only got seconds to take on that contract.
Do you remember when they were playing him over Jared Allen? That was awesome.
Yes. They were, dude, all of that era of Nets.
That was amazing. Yeah.
But
so they dumped DeAndre Jordan and only got seconds, and then Musa. I don't know if you remember Musa.
Yeah,
they had on their team. They traded Musa and a second-round pick for Bruce Brown, and it was basically just a contract dump.
Oh my God! Yeah,
like the Troy Weaver should be. We should have him on for this episode.
Yeah,
that's how much he's contributed to this fucking just horrible contracts and terrible trades. But let's get into the actual contracts now.
Piss said somewhere Will is getting sad, and I'm telling you right now, somewhere Will is vomiting. You know, instead of someone's ears ringing, that you just explosively vomit,
throwing up all over himself.
Yeah.
But they did get Bruce Brown out of
that's true.
And then they let Bruce Brown walk for nothing, and he won a championship with the Nuggets. But anyway, so let's move on. You can take the number 1 pick if you want. It feels really obvious. I think it's going to be the same player that we took.
Yes, this is going to be the same guy. We just
for anyone who wants to listen to the worst rotation player draft, that's on the Ball Patreon. But he was also the first pick.
I'll go first here, and I'll pick the. Well, actually, I don't know.
Does he have competition?
We might have competition. I might be blowing your mind. I don't know which one, because there are 2 I think that are equally really bad. But
okay.
So
do that, and then just because we've already done the whole Jordan Poole thing, we all know.
Oh, okay. So you want me to start that? All right. You know what?
Do someone else.
I'll do Bradley Beal then.
Okay. Bradley Beal, so Beal's on the image for this episode.
Yes.
I feel like the thing with Beal is that, first off, you just want to talk about organizational incompetence. Worst contracts of all time. How many have been on the Washington Wizards in the past 5-6 years? I think you could make the argument that the 4 of the worst contracts of all time have been on 5 of the worst contracts of all time have been on the Washington Wizards in the last 5 years. John Wall Supermax, Bradley Beal Supermax, current Jordan Poole contract, Davis Bertans contracts. It's like there was a 5th one too that I'm completely forgetting, but they've had so many bad deals.
Yeah. I mean, like
Russell Westbrook Supermax.
Oh my God. Yeah, they've had. Didn't they technically have Chris Paul too, which I guess was an okay. It was kind of bad, still bad at that.
Yeah,
point.
It's an expiring $30 million deal. Like I think that's a little bit more stomachable than the majority of these.
It's really bad. I mean, so why I think. Because when Beal plays, he's a better player than Jordan Poole. I want to be clear about that. Like, he is a better player.
He's a better player than a lot of the players on this list.
Yes. So he's actually there's a lot of feast and famine thing, but there's 2 things here. Okay. One is that he never fucking plays. Ever. Okay. So that's a significant step in the wrong direction. Even Jordan Poole actively hurting your team, at least he's out there. You know what I'm saying? You'd
probably rather have him not be.
The Wizards don't. They're getting that number 1 seed, baby. They're Jordan Poole will get them Reed Shepherd. But the other thing, and probably the bigger thing, is he has a no trade clause, which is virtually unheard of. So where with the Jordan Poole thing, you can eventually find, whatever team is going to be the next team to take on bad contracts. Like the Spurs are probably still in that mode. The Pistons should be in that mode. They won't. But, those type of places that have this extra money to absorb bad contracts, you could trade 2 first-round picks with Jordan Poole to get rid of him in 2 years, and get off that a little early. Brad Beal, sorry, you're just stuck with that for the entire duration of the contract. He's not going to want to go to Oklahoma City and listen to the pregame prayer while the athletic trainer's working on his
They're not taking there's no team that can be the other part of the Beal deal is we saw this with Tobias Harris at the deadline here.
Yeah.
It's hard to even trade these contracts because the number is so big. In order to get matching salary back, unless you have cap space you could just dump it into, the ability to get that contract in general is hard to do. The number, what is he even making this year? How much money does Bradley Beal make this season? Because I remember when it first was signed, we were laughing our asses off on it on the stream because we were you're paying at the time we said the 30th best player in the NBA You're paying him Nikola Jokic, Joel Embiid, Giannis Antetokounmpo money.
I can tell you right now. Right now, he's the 6th highest paid player in the NBA. The only players that make more than him are Steph Curry, Kevin Durant, Nikola Jokic, Joel Embiid, and LeBron James. He makes more money this year than Giannis.
So 3 of the 15 best basketball players of all time and the last 2 MVPs.
Yes.
And then Bradley Beal.
Yes.
It's amazing.
He makes $46 million. Okay, so as far as guys who are guaranteed, in terms of guaranteed money, like left on his deal, he's still 21st too. And like some guys around him are guys like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Kevin Durant, again, Joel Embiid and Steph Curry, and a lot of younger players like Devin Booker, Anthony Davis. I mean, Anthony Davis is really Anthony Edwards, LaMelo Ball, like these type of guys. He does not play basketball. Stephen A. Smith boy, he does not play the game of basketball. So his contract is too big. He can't catch the ball.
So this year he's making $46.7 million. Next year he's making $50 million. The year after that he is making $53.6, and the last year is a player option for $57.1 million at age 33 in the 26-27 season. To quote Ryan Russillo, I think he's going to pick that one up. $57 million, which is even with the rising cap and all of this, that's 33.4% of the cap in a few years. So he's essentially taking up a third of the salary cap. And like you said, he's not like Lonzo Ball where he literally doesn't play, but he's in and out of the lineup so frequently with these little injuries. He has a hamstring injury right now, which we know they always act up. Like they never really go away over the course of a season, especially for these older guys. You know, he's in his age 30 season now, I think, Beal. And so let's just run down real quick. Bradley Beal over the last 5 seasons has played 57 games, 60 games. Both of those seasons were shortened seasons, so I'll give him a break there. Yep. And then in full seasons, he has played 40 games 2 years ago, 50 games last year, 30 games so far this year. So he is basically guaranteed to miss at least 20 to 30 games every year, possibly more if you consider his injury history and his age. And right now he has played in 30 games, but I believe he's left 3 games early and not returned with injury so far this year. So really 27 games if you break it all down, which is about half of the amount of games that the Suns have played so far this season. And once again, he's making just as much money as Kevin Durant and Devin Booker, who are your 2 best players. Even when he plays with those guys, they're good, but they're not dominant in a way that like you could justify, okay, we're paying this guy a ton of money, but when he plays, we're running teams off the court. Like there's not even that argument really. It's just kind of like he's good. We're good when he plays and sometimes very good. And sometimes it just doesn't work. And now they're going to be in the situation where they're in cap hell. And as you said, there's no way to get out of this. They are stuck with this contract.
That's the difference between him and the clear number 2 on my board, is that you can't even get out of it, which is like awful. You know, like he's higher paid than, he's higher paid than a lot of these other guys. And again, when he does play, he brings more basketball skill than a lot of these guys that we're going to get into. But it's just all that other stuff adds up for me to him being the worst contract in the NBA. So shout out to Bradley Beal, all-time bag getter.
Incredible. He's going to have, I mean, I'm just guessing off the top of my head here, but he's going to make like $400 million in his career, I think.
Can you imagine if they traded him before the Supermax, if they had just traded him?
If they had listened to House. If they had listened to House and they just traded him for Russell Westbrook again, they got Russell Westbrook and the 2 first-round picks from the Lakers back, how much better would they be sitting right now? And honestly, the return that they got for him, if they had just held on to Chris Paul or dumped Chris Paul for other expiring contracts, that trade actually wouldn't have been that bad because they got swaps for Beal. I think they got 2 swaps for Beal, if I remember correctly. And they just got off, like, the Wizards got off like one of the worst contracts ever. The problem is they got a little bit too greedy and they decided to take on another bad contract in Jordan Poole, who, let's just get it out of the way, I'll take him with the second pick. Like, Poole's contract is so bad that it is hard for me to even grasp how not long ago he signed he signed that deal within the last year and a half. And it instantly, like, it didn't look great at the time, but you could say I was fine with it because he had tricked me. I was like, this is a fine deal for a guy that's in his role. The Warriors desperately need his skill set, and he's going to be really important to the team. And oh, by the way, he just got punched in the face by his teammate, so they kind of feel bad. Yeah, they had just won the championship a few months before. I'm like, I can't really get too mad at this contract. And now we're here, like I said, a year and a half later, he's on a new team. I don't know if you saw this, but he's now coming off the bench for them. He's not even starting on the Wizards. The Wizards have one more win than the Pistons. They have 9 wins on the season, and he is currently coming off the bench for them.
That he was too good at his job being tank commander.
Like, too good.
I think they're like literally just trying to duck a fine there, because I think if they keep playing him, they don't have the cover of like a Monty Williams to who's like, oh, well, our coach just plays bad players. It's like, the tanking's too obvious. We got to like try. We got to get Denny Avdia some more run here.
It's like when the Sixers get fined for not playing Joel Embiid on TNT. They get fined for playing Jordan Poole too much in games.
Yeah.
Too much Jordan Poole. It's not a good thing for the product, to be honest.
No. I'm intrigued by Jonathan pointing out that he's like been better since he came off the bench. Like, does he just need to be a 6-man? Like, is that just his role? Like,
he only can thrive when he comes in 5 minutes into a game as opposed to starting a game. He gets too frazzled when he's actually starting on the team. But
they need to hire, the Wizards need to hire me as a consultant, because I know what Jordan Poole needs to play well, and that is courtside baddies. They need more courtside baddies.
That's right.
So we need to get Kamala Harris out there. We need to get Nancy Pelosi out there. We need to get all of Washington's greatest courtside baddies. I need them right out there, center stage. I know Madison Cawthorn isn't in there, but he's kind of a courtside baddie. Let's get him back out there. I know he's not in Congress anymore, but like, just
I wish I still followed politics so I could add something to this.
Sorry, it's good for your brain.
Unfortunately, I've completely checked out of knowing the name of every fucking senator. At one point I did, and now I'm like, I don't care if all of these people die. But the other thing, if you're listening, Ted Leonsis, and you want that stadium in Northern Virginia, take Sam's advice, because I know you want to move the team so badly, and the 25 fans who are currently booing Jordan Poole during games, apparently when he checks in, will be very devastated by that. So let's just read down the Jordan Poole contract real quick. $27 million this year, $29 million next year, $31 million the following year, and $34 million, which is 19% of the cap. It's around 20% of the cap, most of this deal. And that's really terrible for a player who is actively bad and hurting your team. I think if Jordan Poole was a free agent after this season, there might be a team that gives him like that Spencer Dinwiddie deal we were talking about, like the room exception. There might be a team that's just like, he might not be fully broken and we can have him be our 6-man.
Right.
And we can give him $6 million a year. And he's currently making about $30 million a year on this contract. By the way, fun fact on here. He has $1 million incentive if he wins MVP or Defensive Player of the Year.
Jordan Poole?
Yes.
In his contract.
Yes, too.
Bob Myers is so cool, dude. I love Bob Myers so much. Like there's been no one worse at his job that has gotten more credit for anything Like, oh my god, dude, that's so funny.
He has 17 million
player of the year.
Because remember when this deal was first announced and everyone was like, how much for Jordan Poole? Well, $17 million of that was in unlikely incentives. And like I said, $1 million if he wins MVP, $1 million if he wins Defensive Player of the Year, $500,000 if he makes all defense. I don't think he's hitting any of those. I think we're good. We're good on those incentives. If you are the Wizards, you don't have to worry about that.
Yeah, Evil Russillo says, yeah, I don't think he's going to be picking those up.
Yeah, they will certainly not be paying the tab on that one.
Yeah,
so,
no.
Yeah. So Jordan Poole, number 2.
Speaking of Bob Myers, by the way, let's go to another lame duck Bob Myers special here, and I'll take Andrew Wiggins, number 3. Number third.
We have taken Andrew Wiggins, number 3, folks.
I am taking Andrew because there's a drop off here, and there's a lot of different directions you can go. But I was looking at it. I was looking at the Vorps and the Schnorps. I was looking at the amount of money. I was looking at the fact that Moses Moody is starting again today because Andrew Wiggins. Again, I don't want to like speculate on like what's going on with Andrew Wiggins, but another personal reasons thing. I think like there's clearly something still going on with him. So that's a bummer, but it's, facts are facts. It's a bad contract. It's a very bad contract for Andrew Wiggins, for a guy who is, when he has played, has been bad this year. And, I think a huge part of the Warriors turning their season around was when they made the decision to move on from Klay Thompson and Andrew Wiggins and bring in Brandon Podziemski and Kuminga and give those guys more of a role. And I just, Wiggins, he is making, sorry, I just had it up here. He is making $24 million this year and has 3 more years. And that last year, a player option for $30 million. Again, to quote the great Ryan Russillo, I think he's going to be picking that one up.
Let me blow your mind here real quick.
Okay.
I didn't have Andrew Wiggins on my list.
You're insane. I'm sorry. You're gonna need to explain that one to me.
Andrew Wiggins, since his bad start, has been good. And I know that bad start was like 30 games. So everyone was like freaking out and was like, oh my God. I really think he came into shape. I think he came into camp out of shape. I think that he was mentally not there for whatever reason. Like you said, I don't want to speculate. Right. But he wasn't there. And last 20 games, he's been fine. And if he can be fine, passable, a potential starter level wing for them, and that's pretty much the easiest thing to do on the Golden State Warriors. I think that the contract will be a slight negative for sure. I don't think it's going to be as bad as some of the contracts, even though these players that we're going to get to are better than Andrew Wiggins. I don't think that they're going to be as just detrimental to team building as this contract is, because I feel, and look, maybe you just can't depend on Wiggins, and maybe this is a little hot streak, and he'll dip back being, where he was before, and he was one of the worst players in one of the 10 worst starters in the NBA through 20, 30 games, whatever. But I really do think that he's been fine recently. And I think that with his skill set, if he were to hit the free agency market this summer, and let's just, for argument's sake, let's just say he continues to play as well as he has over the last month and a half, then I think that he would still get like $15 to $20 million in free agency. And then you're looking at a contract where, we're overpaying him by $10 to $15 million per year, but we're not overpaying him by $30 million per year like you are with like Bradley Beal, for example.
Do you, the year that Andrew Wiggins made the All-Star team, what do you think his VORP, where do you think that would put him? VORP being a cumulative stat, so, there's an advantage to having a full season here. Where do you think his VORP in his All-Star season would put him right now in the league? In terms of
I honestly couldn't even tell you. I think that that's one of the fakest All-Star selections of all time. Like we all knew at the time. Remember, it was the K-pop thing. The reason he made it was because he was voted as a starter by the K-pop fans. Yeah. It wasn't even like he got in on his own merit.
So the other people with it's 1.4, and here are some other guys who have a 1.4 VORP. About 2/3 of the way through the season where we're at right now. Isaiah Hartenstein.
Yeah, but hold on.
Kelly Olynyk.
You have to do a whole season. You can't.
But it's a cumulative stat, is what I'm saying. It adds up. So
yes, but if you're playing above average, it will get slightly better throughout the season.
Okay, we will see.
Look at last year's 1.4. Who had 1.4 last year? I'm just curious. Who had that range?
Hold on. Let me
also, D Bronx just commented this. He's averaging 13, 4, and 2 on 49, 41, 80 splits over the last 28 games. Like, his offense has been good recently. I mean, now, is that $30 million a year good? No. I think if you're a starting level wing, though, which is the hope here, that he gets back to that level where he's a starter level wing, then, like I said, he would probably make $18 million. Like, the Sixers would give him $18 million if he was a free agent this offseason, I think.
By the way, Wendell Carter Jr., Larry Nance, Bojan, 36 games of LaMelo Ball.
So bench players, good bench players.
Yeah, like I just, and that's the best season he's ever had in his career. I'm talking about too.
Also was the second or third best player on the championship team. Though.
That's true. That's
true. Same season, he was really good in the playoffs.
Another reason I think it's demonic and God doesn't want Jason Tatum's Boston Celtics to win the championship. That series is proof of that. I just don't think. I think a lot has been made. I think the Warriors media machine has made Andrew Wiggins into something he's not. I think that not having another dead-eye shooter in Klay Thompson around him has kind of exposed him as a guy who is, you just can't have him just only play defense. Like, you just ran through the numbers. Okay, offense, and they still need all of this other stuff. I don't think it's a coincidence that Kuminga's upswing in playing time coincides with Wiggins kind of getting back on track because he's taking less of a role because he's just, quite frankly, not that good.
Once again, not a good contract. Not a good contract. A negative value contract. Not, in my opinion, one of the 10 worst in the NBA. Like, I think that when we get through this list, there are a handful of guys that we're going to be shocked. People will be shocked when they hear how much they're making based on their availability, based on their recent level of play, or projecting for guys that are kind of aging out of their deal. So, I think Wiggins is going to be it's basically like a not as bad version of the Tobias Harris contract, where Tobias at his peak was probably a $20 million a year player making $36 million or whatever it was his average on this deal, which is, once again, a bad contract, a horrible contract. But him being available as much as he was, and him being at least having stretches where he was not the worst player on the court, it's a little bit more manageable than John Wall, who was never, even if the John Wall contract made more sense at the time, who was never available, and when he was available wasn't very good. So that's just kind of my whole thing. And honestly, the next one, it kind of breaks my heart to say this, because I really did like this player a few years ago, but someone who kind of fits the exact description of what I'm talking about right now. And at the time, you could have made the argument deserve the contract, even though I probably would have said it was still an overpay, is Zach LaVine.
Wow. Okay. Do
you know how much money Zach LaVine makes this year?
It's a lot. It is
Zach LaVine makes $40 million this year, $43 million next year, $45.9 million the following year. And then the year after that, he makes, in 2027, Zach LaVine makes $48.9 million.
Can I tell you something right now? His contract right now is, there's one player in the league who has a literal identical contract to Zach LaVine.
Can I guess it? Hold on.
Yeah. Guess who that player is?
Jeremy Grant doesn't make enough. Is it Jason Tatum?
It is Luka Doncic. So would you rather pay Luka, they down to the dollar? These guys have identical contracts for the next 4 years, player options, everything like that. So
let me think about it real quick. Hold on.
Yeah, who would you rather have? Yep.
My favorite thing about the Zach LaVine contract is that he just asked for a trade, and with these massive contracts, they all have trade kickers.
Yeah.
So if he gets traded, the year that let's just say he gets traded next year, he will make 15% more of his salary next year. So that makes this contract, like the Wiggins contract, like I said, if the Sixers strike out in free agency and the Warriors say, hey, we're trying to save money, will you take Andrew Wiggins for free? I think the Sixers might do it. Like to just replace the Tobias Harris spot in the starting lineup and let Tobias walk and just take Wiggins. Now, I don't think it's highly likely, but I think there's a chance that they could get rid of Wiggins and have to give up very little. The Bulls getting off this LaVine contract, they're either taking back a worse contract, which there aren't many in my opinion. Honestly, the only one that might be worse on its face is Jordan Poole, and I don't think they would do that. And I think that they would realistically have to add things to, like they would have to trade Caruso with him, or they would have to add a first-round pick to get off this contract. And at that point, it's not even worth it. Like they tried to trade him to Detroit. And Detroit might have taken him for nothing. They might have just sent like, here's Joe Harris, Bojan Bogdanovich's expiring contract, and Alec Burks' expiring contract. Luckily, they got Quentin Grimes instead, who's actually, I think, a good, nice young piece for them. But I think that he opted to do this surgery to avoid being traded to Detroit. And like, after this year, 3 years at $43 million, $46 million, and $48.9 million, I just don't see any teams, especially when you add in the fact that he's probably going to make more like 40, what is that? 40, 6 million. If you add in the 15% trade kicker, he's going to make like $46 or $47 million next year. Because if you get traded, you have to pay that extra money. It's like with the new CBA, they're probably just stuck with Zach LaVine in this contract. And like Zach isn't an actively harmful player when he plays. He's probably more of just like a neutral player at this point in his career. But like he was bad for them this year, and they've been better without him. And now, like, if you're not even getting like 27 points a game, 5 assists, 5 rebounds, Zach LaVine on like crazy efficiency like 2 or 3 years ago, then what are you even paying for? Is basically what I'm trying to get at here. It's like you're paying a guy who doesn't want to be there, who is almost impossible to trade, and is a very a talented, good scorer, but a guy who is heavily dependent on athleticism and is having another foot surgery or is having another surgery. Like it's bad all around. Like I think that this has to be near the top just because of all that.
My other thing though here is like, unlike Andrew Wiggins, who as we talked about, it was a Mickey Mouse K-pop all-star. Zach LaVine's made 2 of the last 3 all-star games. He deserved at least 4. One of those. Like he was a legit all-star player. Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. Like, it's a bad contract. Don't get me wrong. It's definitely a bad contract. And the argument here is that like, where does Zach fit in on like a winning team? Like if you were trying to like be a winning team, he's probably not going to give you much. But I think there is a market for Zach LaVine on teams like Detroit. There shouldn't be, but teams like Detroit that are trying to just, be competent. You know what I'm saying? Like there is like a role for a high usage guy who's like proven as a scorer. And, it's a bad contract, but I think that you can move a guy like Zach LaVine to those type of teams. Whereas if the floor drops out from Andrew Wiggins, like,
I think Wiggins fits on more teams than LaVine does.
He does. The idea of him fits on more teams, but the teams that are actually going to be willing to trade, they're going to be able to get together the salary to trade for $27 million of Andrew Wiggins.
What about $42 million of Zach LaVine?
That's easier for a team like the Spurs and the Pistons, though, because they've got a Joe Harris and Bertans. And they have cap space. Like, I think it's easier to get out of that. So
Bertans is on the Hornets now, along with Poku. Don't forget that.
Yeah. By the way, shout out to Poku for landing on his feet. He's back.
The MK Ultra Hornets are back, baby.
Yeah. I think you and I are kind of inverted on how we think about this, because I also agree. This is a bad contract. I don't want to make it sound like I would not trade for this contract. I agree with you that like it should be a negative value contract. You're probably giving something up. And I think in all likelihood, especially with Zach's injury history, that's probably the scariest part, is then the thing that is the deal breaker there. But if you're delusional, you can squint and kind of talk yourself into, well,
there might be one or two
healthy.
teams that could buy, but I think there would be more teams that would be willing to take a chance on.
Mm-hmm.
I think there would be more teams that would be willing to take the chance on Wiggins personally, but no spoilers. So we'll get to all of these players that you're saying in the comments, including the last one.
Yeah.
But anyway, so next pick in this draft, you were up with the 5th pick.
All right. So I'll just go with the sister contract here. We'll go back to, I still don't really know. There's a couple of ways I can go here. You know what? Let's just go for the big number. Let's get my guy Karl-Anthony Towns here in the mix, and let's talk about his numbers, because his contract, for those of you unaware of the Karl-Anthony Towns contract, because you may be saying to me, Sam, that's a little crazy. The Wolves, they're doing pretty well right now. I think it's a little rude of you to sit here and say that, while Cat's not, an all-star anymore or that type of player.
Well, he is. He made the all-star team.
Oh, he did make the all-star team? Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
He scored 50 points in that all-star game, by the way. Remember Draymond?
Draymond, that's right. Yeah, I forgot. Yeah, Draymond was giving him shit. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Look, he has such little presence that I watched that fucking game. And
it was in the 4th quarter. It was like all in the 4th quarter when the game was over.
I literally forgot. I wiped that from my mind. I swear to God, I watched the All-Star game, and that's so bad. But anyway, so here, let me run through some of Cat's numbers. This year, only making $36 million. Not that's that fine. Bad, right? Yeah, that's fine.
That's about what he should get paid, I think.
Yeah. Next year, 49.2. The year after that, 53.1. Yeah. The year after that, 57.1. The year after that, a player option in 27-28 for $61 million. Let's cue the Russillo clip. I think he's going to be picking that one up.
I mean, my favorite fact that I've probably said 100 times on this podcast, and people are sick of it, is that year alone, Karl-Anthony Towns will make more money than Larry Bird and Magic Johnson made in their entire careers combined. Which is awesome. And people will say inflation, and then I'm like, go do the inflation calculator and tell me how much of a difference it is, because it's still staggering if you put in their salaries from the 1980s before guys really got paid. And you compare it to what he's making in a few years. So
I can't wait for Cat to buy the Dodgers in 2070.
So Karl-Anthony Towns, like you said, he's probably the 3rd best player on the 1 seed right now, behind Rudy Gobert and Anthony Edwards. I don't think he was a deserving all-star, but I understand why they put him in over Rudy, because Rudy just doesn't really fit the All-Star game.
All-Star game.
Yeah. Like Cat is more of a guy that you would put in the All-Star game and shoot threes and score 50 points in a loss or whatever. Whereas Rudy's more of like an all-defense, all-NBA guy. I understand why he didn't make the team over him, even though he's very clearly their best or second best player on the Wolves. Yeah. It's actually funny. I actually think that Karl-Anthony Towns has a better argument to make the All-Star team than Paul George this year, or it's close, I should say. Yeah. I looked at Paul George's stats the other day, and I was like, I know he's been really bad recently, especially after the All-Star game, and he might be even injured, but I was like kind of shocked how underwhelming Paul George's stats were for a guy that everyone because I gave Cat a lot of shit when he made the All-Star game. And I was like, how the fuck is Karl-Anthony Towns making the All-Star game? This makes no sense. De'Aaron Fox missed it. All these guys missed the All-Star game. But Paul George, I looked at his stats and I was like, I think that his might be even they're about as underwhelming as they're both very underwhelming for All-Stars in this Western Conference. And historically, obviously Paul George is way better. He just made his 10th All-Star team, 9th All-Star team. Like he's one of the best players of all time. So it's hard to compare the two, but I did want to throw that out there. Cat's making way too much money though for a guy that is, like you said, on a good year, he'll make the All-Star team, but it's not a guarantee every year. This year because the team record's good, but if he played for any other team, he's probably not making the All-Star team. And they're good because of their defense, not because of their offense.
Yeah. And, to make that amount of money when there's history of you, and not a large history, mind you, it's kind of a small sample size, but there's a history of him being a little bit of a playoff faller too, which it doesn't exactly bode well. And that's really bad if you're a guy who in the last year of his contract is going to be making over $60 million, and you're a guy who's had these really loud, epic flameouts in the playoffs. I just don't think there's any other player we're going to draft today that has any contract like that where he's making $60 million in the last year, and he has a history of very clearly being the worst player on a playoff loss. So
no, certainly
I'm
not.
glad
Actually,
we agree on that. Agree on that. That's the only a guy like that is.
I heard on a popular podcast this week that there are no bad contracts in the NBA, actually.
Wow.
And that you could just always,
awesome.
And anyway, with the next pick, I take Jaylen Brown. It's completely unrelated.
I had to pick Cat to defend Jaylen. Like they really aren't the same contract. They're the same contract.
Well, but the funny part about Jaylen is that the Celtics are historically good. Jaylen is having a good season.
Yep.
Similar to Cat, just not quite as in terms of like the Celtics team success is like off the charts this year in terms of how good they are.
Yeah, I'll say eye test. This is definitely like Jaylen Brown's best year. Like I know stats might say otherwise or anything. This is Jaylen's having like a really good year.
And this has been common sentiment even from Jaylen haters, I would say. Like there are Celtics fans I know that like in the Discord that are like Jaylen's massively overrated and we should have traded him. And even they will admit this is probably his best season. Yeah. But when you look at the contract and if he played for any other team, we would probably discuss this more often. And also there wouldn't be this narrative around there not being any bad contracts like Bill and Russillo said. Because the craziest part about all this is I don't know if it's BMM or if it's just the Celtics team success or if it's just the wing obsession, but I kind of think that I'm just going to read down his contract right now. He's 27 years old. He's like you said, he's had struggles in the playoffs. He's also had very good playoff games too. He's had a lot of chances to redeem himself, let's say, in the playoffs. Yeah. And sometimes that's worked out great. He was really good in the Sixers series for most of that series last year. He was really bad in the Heat series. He struggles against the Heat in the playoffs specifically. And right now he is making 40. All right. So this year is the last year of his original deal, which was a totally fine contract. He's making 28 million. Next year he will make 49 points. It's amazing to look at the first year on this deal. Because normally when we look at the first year, we're like, oh, well, he only makes like 35 million in his first year or like 40 million in his first year. In the first year of this new extension, Jaylen Brown makes 49.3 million. The next year he makes 53.2 million. These are all estimates based on the cap. The following year he makes 57.2 million. The following year after that he makes 61.1 million. And the year after that, he makes 65.1. Is he going to be the first player in the NBA to make 60 million over the course of 120 million over the course of 2 seasons?
No, because Giannis
and AD
is making 73. Yeah, Giannis, AD, and Jokic are all scheduled to make more money than him. Are all scheduled to hit that. But then Jaylen is going to do it in 27 and like 28, 29. Like,
bro,
the only other guys getting paid like maxes in 28, 29 are Anthony Edwards, LaMelo Ball, Tyrese Halliburton, Desmond Bain.
All the 2020 draft guys.
Yeah, all the 2020 draft guys. Yeah,
who just signed their 5-year max extensions with their teams.
Right.
Most of them were max extensions. So
Jaylen's the only other guy because he's like the only guy who got a super max extension. So like his money is just on the book for so long. It's a year longer than like everybody else. Like it's a year longer than Giannis and these other guys who have signed these huge contracts. So
But what I was trying to get at here is like the perception of Jaylen, whether it's because he's on a really good Celtics team or it's because the team, like I said, the league loves wings, or half of the GMs across the league were Celtics fans growing up and they want to help the Celtics at any chance they can get. I do think that this contract is going to be easier to move than it should be. Like, if this was any other team, I would be like, they're stuck with this contract. But because the Celtics are so good and Jaylen has a chance to be, if you guys don't win the finals this year, which I guess my question for you is, like, I think they said on Bill's podcast, if they lose in the conference finals, he would get traded. I think that if they lose anywhere before the finals, he gets traded. If they make it to the finals and just lose to like Jokic and the Nuggets or something, they'll probably just run it back again and just continue with the Jaylen Brown experience. But I guess my question for you is, like, what level would they have to hit to keep Jaylen past this year if they run into another wall?
Honestly, I think he's gone in like 2 to 3 years regardless, just because the money is so like it's really like bad. And they have Porzingis on like a pretty decent deal, especially where Porzingis is playing. But like, they would basically have to let Drew walk. If they like extend Drew in any way, shape, or form, things start getting really dicey really quick, because
they have to pay Derek White, they have to pay Drew Holiday. Tatum will have a super max that's coming up. I mean, it's a lot of money for, like you said. I don't know. I kind of think they're more likely to let Drew walk because, like, my whole thing with letting Drew walk is, like, you didn't want Malcolm Brogdon on your team, and Rob Williams doesn't play games anymore.
Yeah.
So, like,
I think they should, by the way.
They should just let Drew walk, is what you're saying?
Yeah, I think they should just do that. Yeah.
So I guess the question becomes, if you lose in it really just depends on, like, who doesn't fit on the team, and it's obvious in the playoffs.
I just think I don't think people realize the financial ramifications, especially of the new CBA. Like, the Celtics went all the way up against it as quick as they could, just to kind of, take advantage of this tender window zone. But I think this team is going to get broken up faster than people realize. Like, I think Jaylen will be. I don't think Jaylen Brown's going to be on the Celtics in 3 years. I don't think it's financially, like, viable. And the question is, do the wheels come off faster? What D-Bronx was saying in the comments, does the Boston Media Mafia keep his trade value high enough that they can, like, swindle the Hawks or someone into, like, taking him and, like, getting essentially even value, for, a player who really should be a negative. No, won't be traded.
The offense stalls again. And then, I mean, I think it's likely that the Celtics, just looking at the landscape of the East right now, the Sixers are like injured as shit. And, like, even if they're healthy, like I said, I think this team's ceiling is conference finals. The Bucks, they're kind of figuring things out, but also they still just have a mess of issues on their hands with that current team and the way that it's built. The Knicks are just incredibly injured right now. The Cavs, I don't believe in the Cavs at all. There's nothing
they're on fraud. They're in the fraud zone until further notice. You got to prove it to me. Yeah.
And maybe I'm just overrating last year's playoffs, but I'm just like, I don't know. Like, the Sixers have beat them twice in the last week, and, like, the Sixers can't beat any good teams. So that scares me. Donovan Mitchell did miss one of the games, but the Sixers don't have Embiid right now. Like, the Cavs should have won at least one of those games. There's really no excuse. And then it just is, like, the Heat, who, like, by the way, they're zombieing again. Dude, so someone said in the Discord last night, is Tyler Hero worse than Jimmy Butler is good? Which made me look up, what is the Miami Heat's record without Tyler Hero this year? And what is the Miami Heat's record with Jimmy Butler this year?
Oh my God. Let's go. I love this. Let's hear it.
The Miami Heat have a 20-18 record with Jimmy Butler this season and a 13-8 record without Tyler Hero this year.
Let's go.
That is incredible. And it's funny because I was watching the Kings last night and everyone was like, well, they're missing Tyler Hero and Josh Richardson and Terry Rozier and Jimmy Butler. And I'm watching them beat the Kings. The Kings were on the second half of a back-to-back, but they did beat the Kings. And I'm watching this game and I'm like, they're just better without everyone but Jimmy. Like, Jimmy is what makes them whole and, like, in the playoffs, and is a big part of why they're so good in the playoffs. But, like, they're better without Tyler Hero. They might be better without Terry Rozier. Like their whole team is built on ball movement and like playing as a team. And Tyler Hero just takes away so much of that from the team that he doesn't fit with the identity at all. And my whole thing on this is like, we've joked about Tyler Hero getting hurt and then being better in the playoffs, but at this point, it's just an objective fact. They are a better team without Tyler Hero than when he plays. And I'm sure he'll get drafted at some point in this bad contract draft. But like, it's startling to me how much better they are when he doesn't play. And over the last month, I think it is, if you look at their February net rating, I said when we were about to write off the Heat, right? I think they were the 8th seed. We were like, they might be in the play-in again. I was like, I'm kind of out on them. And I said, I will wait to see how they finish February, March, like they did last year. But they're even better this year than they were last year at this time.
Yeah. Yep.
So now I'm like, oh, great. Are they like Jimmy is ramping up? He even did you see what he said? He said it's about that time of year again.
Let's go.
Because
I love this thing. That's awesome.
Kev dug up his box plus minus from the last like 2 weeks, and it was like plus 17, plus 14. But like he's just started trying again. And now when he plays and when he doesn't play, and especially without Tyler Hero, the Heat are good. Like they're getting away with it again. Like if they we'll see where they end up, whether they end up in the 4-5 with the Knicks, or they end up in the 3-6 with the Bucks, or they end up in the 2-7 if they play the Sixers in the play-in, which is possible. Like we're looking at a potential another zombie mode here is what I'm trying to get at.
I want Knicks Heat again. I think that would be a lot of fun. That would be some disgusting basketball, but I think I do like that those two teams like don't like each other. And I also selfishly want the Knicks to absorb. I want
all the injuries.
Yeah, I want that football game. I want both those teams. I'm scared of both of those teams for the Celtics, and I think them playing a football game against each other would be nice.
Yeah, exactly. It's
for me.
God. All right, so Jimmy Butler's this is the tweet that Kev posted.
Yeah.
Jimmy Butler's BPM in the last 3 weeks. He had a 19.6 BPM in the last game he played. 15.2. Just to put it in perspective, Jokic currently has the best BPM of all time right now, and he's at like 14 something. So this is 19.6. 15.2, 11.8, 5.4, 9.9, 13.6, 13.0, and 10.1. So he's basically playing at an MVP level right now, Jimmy Butler. And by the way, the Miami Heat currently have a plus 10 net rating in the month of February, which would be only second in the NBA to the Celtics, I believe, who have the best net rating right now and one of the best net ratings of all time. So they're zombie moding again. Like, I don't think there's going to be a weak team in either conference in the playoffs this year. There's just like the worst team is probably going to be like the Magic, I guess. Like the Magic are probably going to be the worst playoff team. Like this is by far the most competitive that the NBA has been maybe ever in terms of like having no playoff teams really. Like I think the Magic are the closest thing, and they'll probably lose in the first round pretty easily one of the top seed just because their offense isn't good enough. But like they're just a young team. Like they'll get better.
Yeah, and I think it's I guess just my thing just to kind of like close out the Miami Heat thing is they're also evil. And there's Satan is rising again. We're kind of hitting that time of the year where Wiccans and other like witch and warlock based sort of worship of Mammon, Asmodeus, all of the greater demons and demonic peoples of hell are rising back up. So that also probably has a lot to do with this. So may you drink God's blood, Miami Heat, you demonic apparitions, and please don't be on our side of the bracket, please. That would be very nice.
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you right now, we'll see. I might end up streaming for a Sixers Heat play-in game, which would just be like,
no, they'd be bad
God.
then. They'd be bad though. You guys would win that if it weren't the elimination game. You guys would win that. If
you're saying 8-9. For the 7-8, right?
Yes, yeah, the 7-8. You guys would win that.
You guys are the 1 seed.
Yes. Also, they just don't need to until they do. They lost to the Hawks last year.
Yeah, it's true.
They almost lost to the Bulls, which is insane.
Yeah. All I'm saying is, let's think about the history here. Mm-hmm. The Sixers in a not a must-win game, but like versus the Heat, and like I'm probably taking the Heat. like let's be honest here. Like,
I don't know.
The Heat with the chance to either play the Bucks or the Cavs versus the Celtics. Because like, look, I know we could joke all about like the Celtics and the Heat. They still go to 7 every time they play. Like they would be especially if it were the Cavs waiting in the 2 seed, they would be all over that opportunity, I would imagine. But yeah, like you said, they lost to the Hawks last year. Anything can happen in a 1-game thing too. Yeah. Like it's basically just who shoots better. And we know their history of going devil mode at the right time. So oh boy. But yes.
Got it. Bucks Heat would be a lot of fun too. Yeah. That would be a very funny. I know not for Bucks fans, but
that would be very funny actually. Yeah. I kind of want to see that just because the Dame thing, the Doc versus Spo again. I might have to be a contrarian and take the Bucks in that just to piss everyone off. But anyway, 7th pick. We already took Jaylen with the last pick. So far, to recap, Bradley Beal, Jordan Poole, Andrew Wiggins, Zach LaVine, Karl-Anthony Towns, Jaylen Brown, and now you're up with the 7th pick.
I'm going to leave it as is, but I meant to take this guy higher. But it's probably good that I picked him down here because this is kind of a vibes-based one where it's very personal to me. This is going to be the one where everyone's like, Sam, what the fuck are you doing? I think Domantas Sabonis is one of the worst contracts in the NBA.
It's funny. We talked about this in the Discord the other day because on Dunked On, Nate and Danny talked about Sabonis versus Cat.
Yeah.
And Sabonis, how much does he make this year?
It's insane. My jaw dropped. I didn't realize how big his contract is. It's kind of nuts.
They reworked. They did them and the Pacers did the rare. Let's use our cap space to rework this guy's contract. Mm-hmm. So you have basically what they did was they took the cap space that they had, I guess, or whatever they could offer him. They offered him the max amount, and then they extended him off of that. So they gave him a new contract in order to make this extension work because right now he's making $28 million. Last year he made $18. They gave him a $10 million pay raise. And then after that, he makes $39.2, $42.3, $45.7, and $48.6. The only thing I will say here, he's not that old. He's kind of sneaky young. Like for a guy that's been in the league as long as him, I could have sworn he was older. Like he's 27 years old right now, I think.
300 days. Born May 3rd.
Okay, so he's close to being 28, but he's in his age 27 season.
Yeah.
And next year he's 28 and he's making 39, which sounds like a lot, and it is, but it's 29% of the cap, then it's 28% of the cap, 28% of the cap, 27% of the cap. Look, I know Sabonis is never going to be on a championship team just because maybe not even a team that wins a playoff series. They came close last year, and part of the reason why they lost was that he really struggled in that Warrior series. But like the one thing I will say is like they're probably going to pretty consistently be in at least the play-in in the West with him and Fox. And like he does at least give you a floor of competence in a way that none of the other guys we've drafted have.
That's true. That's true. But I just I just don't think that's like the thing about like let's back up to like Zach LaVine or Cat or one of these other guys we've already taken. Those guys can at least like shoot threes, and you can kind of like tell yourself like, you know, if they figure something out, they can contribute in a playoff setting. You know what I'm saying? Like there's a path to contributing in a playoff setting in like the pace and space era and doing some of this. The thing is, Sabonis is such a dinosaur like basketball wise, that like if they didn't win that, not winning that Warriors series last year,
that was
really,
probably their best chance.
Yeah, like that is insane considering how much of a matchup that should have been for Sabonis. The fact that Sabonis had a terrible series against the team that like had Kevon Looney and like semi-washed Draymond like out there last year is staggering, to be honest. And it's probably going to get worse. I think Sabonis, did you know Sabonis finished 7th in MVP voting last year?
Yeah, I mean, he was really good during the regular season last year.
And I just don't
They were
think
the 3 seed?
The 3 seed. And I just don't think that, like, I think these other guys we've talked about, Kat, Jaylen, all these other guys are at least going to be contributing in ways. And so that's what kind of makes this a little bit of an eye of the beholder thing. Like, do you value a high floor competence? And I'm going to base a lot of my stuff off of building a championship team and building a team that can compete in the playoffs. And I think it just absolutely kills your team, like even winning a playoff series, and you're paying that guy like over a third of your payroll. That's pretty bad.
I mean, I'll put it like this. I think the Warriors are better this year, even though their record's worse.
Yeah.
I think they're a better team than they were last year, with the addition, with Kuminga being at least playable, and like starter, having some nice stretches, Pods being an upgrade over what they had. And when Chris Paul gets healthy, their bench having some competence. The fact that they lost that game, and I know Steph went off in game 7, and like, what can you really do? But like you said, like, I think that was their best chance of winning a playoff series. Like, unless Keegan has some sort of like meteoric rise, which, by the way, I don't know. I've been watching the Kings a lot recently. Keegan will have these like 2-quarter stretches where he's just like Kevin Durant. Like, he literally just doesn't, like, last night at one point he was 7 for 7 in the game, and then he had 4 threes in the fourth quarter, I think. Sometimes he is, when he catches fire, he looks like a legit, I mean, a lot of guys do when they're, making every shot they take, but he looks like, he has stretches where he looks like he could be a star. The only thing with him is like, he's 23. Like, it's not like a death sentence. I think he's actually, he might even be turning 24 this calendar year. But they need him to be a lot better. They need him to really like pop in his 20s, in his mid-20s, to reach another level of, we can win a playoff series. Because right now, the Fox and Sabonis duo is going to get you at least to the play-in. A lot of their struggles this year, even though it's funny, their record is actually the same as last year, I think, at this time, but the West is just much better now. So like, it seems like they've fallen off, when the reality is, we said this in the preseason, like, it was just going to be a natural regression for them. Like, the league was going to catch up a little bit offensively to them, which they have. They've fallen down in that regard. And a few of their guys have regressed. Kevin Huerter has been bad this year. Harrison Barnes has been bad this year. And it's really Monk, Keegan, Fox, and Sabonis holding that team together. But I do think that the thing is, like, it's hard for me to have him on here when he does give you that baseline level of it's the DeMar DeRozan thing, basically.
Yeah.
And like, exactly. DeMar was on some playoff teams that actually did win multiple series, and like, he was at least part of that, even though he always struggled historically in the playoffs. But it's DeMar DeRozan. Like, would you prefer to have a decent floor that gets you into the playoffs, or would you prefer to have the Jaylen Brown, the Karl-Anthony Towns, who, like you said, in theory can be the second or third best team on a championship team if the pieces are in there, and he doesn't scale. He doesn't scale at all. Like, he needs the ball. He doesn't shoot well enough to really work well off the ball. His defense isn't good enough as a center to be able to kind of impact the game. And as Bob Myers said 100 times during that game the other day, he can't protect the rim. Yeah, we get it. We understand, Bob Myers. Thank you. But long story short here, I think it's a overpay for sure, considering all of those things. But I still think he is a really good player. Like, he's one of the 25 best players in the NBA.
He's a great regular season player.
Yeah.
And I don't value that very much. I just don't think the regular season.
Kings fans do.
Kings fans do, you know, so.
He might be in the best context for that.
Yes,
he's probably in the best context for that, because this is just a team that always struggles to even make the play-in, and like, at least like you said, the competence there, and on this contract for them, it's fine. But the majority of teams, yes, he doesn't really fit on, and if he does fit on them, it really, like I said, it requires like a perfect context probably to even win a playoff series, and like the board really breaking right for you. And like, winning a playoff series, I think, is not a bar that is like, shouldn't be seen as completely unattainable if you're trying to, like, if you're paying a guy $40-something million a year. So
I'm going to tap into my inner Bill here for a second. For Kings fans, this is like getting a girlfriend who steals your credit card number, but every other girlfriend you've had burned your house down. You've had arsons. You've had Arson's house, and they've been burning your house down. And it's like, you know what? You love me, and I think it's okay that sometimes you go on a little bit of a Shein shopping spree, and I'm down 900. She's buying a lot of stuff there because Shein, they have great products. So when we come back, we're gonna do a little read for Shein here on the BS podcast.
It's exactly what it's like.
Yeah.
Someone said, "You know what that's like, Rosillo? Silence." The comments.
Yeah.
Certainly does not.
Yeah, Ryan. Yeah, Ryan. Be like, yeah. I mean, I don't know about that. But I mean, like, look, he's a lot of people around the league really like him. I don't like him, but I've talked to some folks, and they really like this guy. He's really, pulled himself up. And I mean, this is a team that really needed that. It really needed that. You don't like that. That made you nervous, huh, Ryan? and then Ryan would start getting pissy. That, look, man, I told you that. Look, women burn houses down all the time. It's fine. it's like a Russillo.
Have you seen the tweet where Russillo was tweeting about the Charlotte Hornets?
No.
And someone tweeted at him and was like, "Ryan, go outside. Like, Russillo, like, you touch grass." Like, and so he just tweeted a picture of himself on his boat.
Let's go.
He was out at sea. He has Starlink on his boat.
Let's go.
And he was out at sea watching the Charlotte Hornets on his boat.
Honestly,
king move.
Kind of swag. Yeah, I was gonna say, like, honestly, that's kind of nice.
I respect
it.
To
be honest. Yeah, like that rocks, to be honest. So,
yeah, I respect that move from Russillo. Yeah,
I would
thought that was
to
great.
do that. Yeah,
it was so funny because he's such a king, dude. Anyway, on to the next contract on here. So Sabonis was the last one. I'm up with the 8th pick. We'll do 10. We'll draft 10, and then we'll run down a handful. He's been on the board for a while. The reason I didn't take him earlier is because
too short.
It's just a boring one. Like, it's just kind of boring, but we have to take Ben Simmons. Like,
it's only 1 year left too.
It's a year and a half, basically. Or it's a year and a third left. Yeah. But the duration of the contract never available. When he is available, just a mentally broken player. Like, he might be physically broken as well. The thing that people aren't really talking about with Ben is like, everyone talks about like the same things. Like, he's afraid to look at the rim. He's afraid to go to the line. The second he gets past half court, he passes it off. His defense has been bad this year. He's not even a good defender anymore. So like, he doesn't bring you any kind of value. Like, I see far too many games where he just is not the guy that he used to be. So athletically, he's clearly massively declined, in addition to just having the yips with shooting and doing anything, driving. He's basically just always trying to get rid of the ball whenever he passes half court to get to open guys. Like, he really brings no value. Like, if Ben were a free agent this offseason, I honestly think he would be a veteran's minimum player. Yeah.
No, definitely would be. If he even got signed at all.
Yeah.
I kind of think he might not even get signed besides by like Detroit. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't think teams want Ben.
Like, what team I think would sign him?
Who's that?
Take one guess on what team I think would sign him.
The Bucks?
No.
The Pistons?
No.
Oh.
Golden State.
Oh, yeah.
I think Golden State would sign him. They'd be like, first off, they have a history, number 1 overall pick.
Yeah.
Bringing in the high pedigree guy with good feel. Yeah. He was a really talented player. We can fix him. And by the way, people joke about like, I was literally doing a deep dive on Sean Livingston last night.
He rules, dude.
He does, but like,
yeah,
a lot of people don't realize that outside. By the way, I don't know which team did he play for before he went to the Warriors. He had one good.
The Nets. The Nets, right? Yeah.
Yeah, he had his bounce back year. He was like fringe rotation guy. Not after the knee injury.
After the injury, yeah. That was
after the injury. Yeah. He was like okay early in his career for a young guy, but he was really young when he came in the league. He was one of the last high school guys that came into the league. But like, once again, tall point guard, high feel, injuries, like played for the Nets. There's at least some precedent for this is what I'm trying to get at with the Warriors. I think we're looking at a situation where if Ben gets traded this offseason on this contract, he probably gets bought out by his next team. And I actually think the team that's most likely to get him is the Warriors. The other team that I think might just be like, fuck it, we're the Heat, let's try it.
Yeah.
Like maybe, but he doesn't really fit their like culture thing or whatever. So that might not be the case. And then the last team I think that might be willing to take a flyer on Ben after this, another stretch, but like, nah, they have Wemby now. I don't think the Spurs would do it now. I thought the Spurs might just be like, we can fix him. Like, I really think it would just be Golden State at this point. Like, I think they would just, they wouldn't even be able to get him because they're a second apron team. Oh, also, just little sidebar about the Warriors. Apparently, Joe Lacob, someone told me this. Joe Lacob talked about getting out of the tax. Yeah. And like how he wants to get out of the tax with this team if they're not contending for championships. And like, if that's the case, dude, like Klay, Chris Paul, all those guys' money they're already under the apron for next year. Someone just said in the comments, they're actually like not going to be a mega tax team starting shortly, which is kind of insane to think because they've always been like the super tax team that just spends all this fucking money, but now they're probably not going to.
Yeah. And that's a pretty easy way to like get out of it. It's just, you have these 2 giant expiring contracts and you can still like dump Wiggins at some point, like
I think it's likely they dump Wiggins and then just run it back with the core and then hope that Kuminga and Pods just get better and then figure out whatever Kuminga's extension is this offseason or a year from now.
Yeah.
It's wild to think about, but yeah. But anyway, Ben Simmons. Yeah. I mean, Ben's the worst player that we've taken so far other than Jordan Poole.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think he's worse than Jordan. At least Jordan Poole plays.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Better or worse. Yeah. So, this is my last pick because you said we're only doing 10, right?
Yeah.
And that kind of put some pressure on me because I had a bunch of like just some different flavors I could go with here.
We can do our whole like these are the other people we were considering.
For the sake of how we're doing this, we've taken a lot of big contract guys. I'll take a guy who's like kind of a little bit more in the middle of the road.
Okay.
Let's do, because I think this will be more fun to talk about. Let's talk about one DeAndre Ayton.
I had him on the list. He was upcoming for me. Yeah. It is funny you say he's like more middle of the road because he actually is a max contract.
Right. But a young player, middle of the road. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. First max, and also didn't get the full 5 year because he hit restricted free agency. They only were able to offer 4 because the Pacers, whatever. The Pacers got incredibly lucky that the Suns matched that. Yeah. Because if the Suns being, someone pointed this out in the Discord, the Suns being cheap usually was kind of their downfall, like with Sarver. But Sarver in that situation being able to actually spend up and pay money to pay for Ayton, they were able to get off the contract pretty easily. They got Grayson Allen and Nurkic out of it, who were both better for them than Ayton. Yeah. But that actually almost saved them in that situation. And the Pacers being willing to overpay might almost fuck them. So yeah, that's interesting. That's a really bad contract. How much does he make this year?
So 32 this year, 34 next year, 35 the year after. So It's less than a lot of these other guys we're talking about. Like,
Yeah.
30 million. It's like literally half of a bunch of what these other guys we're talking about. Still the 40th highest paid player in the NBA right now, directly in between Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown right now. So, that the thing about Ayton that is so, because he's like a youngish guy, you could kind of talk to them about. He's like, what if Sabonis wasn't good?
The counting stats are good when you look for
Yes.
Ayton. That's always the funniest thing about Ayton.
Right.
Is like, you're like, wait, this guy averages 14 and 10 on like very good efficiency. Why is he bad? And then I'm like, oh, just watch any games.
Watch a game. Watch any game. Yeah.
Literally the most last year he averaged 18 and 10 on like 60% from the field, and he was not good.
Yeah. No, and this is like, even counting stats wise, this is also like one of his like bad seasons. It is one of his worst seasons, which is kind of alarming because he was kind of a role player. He was more of a role player for the Suns.
Play finisher. Yeah.
I get that Simons and like Grant are good players, but I still think he probably should have taken a little bit of a leap forward on a team that's really rebuilding and has no interest in winning games.
Yeah.
It's a little bit alarming that he's not able to dominate in any way. And everyone talks about Bagley. It is like kind of really insane that they hired Luka's coach and didn't take Luka. Do you remember that?
One of the weirdest things in NBA history, and the funny thing about all those teams that passed on Luka is like they were all, and like, look, Fox and Booker are awesome players. Yeah, they're not as good as Luka. And like, no. That was the reason that they passed on Luka in the first place. And I'll say this much: I know we've had a lot of like center busts in the draft. Like, if you look at the majority of busts throughout history, almost all of them are bigs.
Yes.
But I do think that part of that is the fact that like teams are always looking for the upside swing, like who can be the best player on a championship team.
Yeah.
And the majority of history tells us those are almost always wings or bigs. And it happened to be like, I mean, I wasn't as into the draft in 2018 as you were. You were one of the calculator rats being like, draft Luka. Like, it makes literally no sense to take anyone else.
I was losing my mind. That was like the last year when like people just totally discounted European. Like he was the EuroLeague MVP, and it was like at 18, and it was just like, and you watched him, and it was like, no, this guy's going to be like amazing. This is like not the same thing. Like he's playing against grown men and doing this. Like you
18 getting like Manu and Harden comps in the EuroLeague, and like is going to end up historically better than both of them.
Yeah, and like Bagley and like both Bagley and Ayton were like not that good. Like you watched Ayton like wanted to shoot long twos. Like it was like very clear. And I get that like college basketball is like so different, but it was like very clear that he was like out, like wanted to be like a skills big, like cat. Sure. You know what I'm saying? Like,
and that was part of the reason why they thought this trade was going to be good.
Right.
Was because him getting traded to Portland, like, oh, you're the guy now. Like you're one of two. You might be the best player on this team, and he has completely fumbled the opportunity. Like he's been not good. Like, and it's all like some of it is effort shit, where it's like his physical tools are incredible. Like he should be protecting the rim, dominating on the boards, like all, and he doesn't do any of the stuff that he should. Like it's just it's wild for a guy. He can't even set screens. Like I don't even know what his deal is.
He like, and I don't want to go like too boomer, but there are like he has a lot of like boomer adjacent like plot line stuff.
Well, I mean,
like the playing video games all night.
Yeah. Like, and he said in an interview, like he was like, I'm a max player in this league. I earned a max contract. I don't have anything to prove. Yeah. And it's like, you're like 20, what is he, like 26, 25? Like,
yeah, he's going to be like, I think he's 24. Or no, sorry. No, he's not 24.
He's 25,
sorry,
right?
He's 25, yeah.
But like, this is like where you should be like getting better and like entering your prime and like wanting to be a better player. And he kind of fits all the boomer narrative shit. There was that run of number one picks is like boomer catnip, dude.
in terms of Karl-Anthony Towns, Ayton, Ben Simmons.
Oh man, yeah, they for a while the league was like only drafting guys with no dollars.
Zion, yeah.
Jeez, and Wiggins too. Oh my god.
Yeah.
Anthony Edwards really flipped the switch in terms of being a hooper who has that dog in him. But yeah, that's actually.
Bill B pointing out that I'm bitching about players playing video games. I'm bitching about players playing Call of Duty. There's a huge difference. If he was playing JRPGs, he would have that dog in him. If he was on Persona 3 Reload right now, he'd be there. Yeah.
I don't care if you play video games and that is like I think the majority of these guys are just, I mean, I'm seeing it now with Mo Bamba on the Sixers where like he was just cursed to be born with an 8-foot wingspan.
Right. Yeah.
Like he clearly doesn't like basketball at all. He's just like, I'm going to make a few $1 million and then fucking, which is cool. I don't care. That's fine.
That's fine.
I'm not going to judge any of these dudes. Get your bag, get your money, whatever. But if we're just talking like objectively, they haven't lived up to their contracts. And like that is the exercise that we're doing right now. And certainly definitely feeds into a lot of the boomer stereotypes. But I will say Anthony Edwards probably was the correction to this recent trend of number 1 overall picks. And now we're getting some more hoopers and some more dogs that have the fight in them that actually like basketball over the last few years. So all right. So I will pick with the last pick in the draft. So you know what? I have a lot of people I'm considering here. I will just run down my list of people I'm considering, and then I'm just going to take a spicy one.
Okay.
Fuck it. Who cares?
I'll agree with you. When you name someone who was also on my list, I'll chime in.
All right. So here are the people I would, if I didn't want to do a spicy one, that I would take in front of this person.
Okay.
John Collins, Tyler Hero, RJ Barrett, Lonzo Ball.
Yes.
I mean, that's not. Yeah. Nikola Vucevic, Michael Porter Jr. By the way, really bad contract.
I looked at him still, and it's like you did win the championship. You know, like I couldn't quite. It is a bad contract, but
he's
it's like
the fifth best player on the Nuggets, though. Yeah. He's the. I think KCP is more important to them than Michael Porter Jr. and Aaron Gordon definitely is.
Ban D Bronx. D Bronx is banned. You kick him out of here for the rest of the day. He said Marcus Smart. These we don't tolerate that kind of. No. Did you have DeAndre Hunter? I had DeAndre Hunter.
I have DeAndre Hunter next on my list.
Okay.
I had Jalen Green on his rookie contract after that.
Oh, there we go. Let's go.
And then I just have a few lower tier ones that are just bad role player ones that I'm not taking because they're just like Zach Collins' contract is terrible. No idea why they signed him to that extension. Made literally no sense. He makes a lot of money for a guy that is not even starting for them anymore. Especially after they knew they were getting Wemby to extend him. I don't understand.
Also kind of weird because it's like a small Brad Beal deal. Zach Collins like doesn't play. Yeah, exactly. Like he just doesn't play like in the NBA.
He makes like $18 million a year or something. Yeah, it's really weird.
Crazy.
And then I had PJ Tucker as well, who we know what's happening with PJ Tucker. Zeke Naji, also from the Denver Nuggets. He's not good, and he makes like $7 or $8 million per year. Nas Little, another one, $6 or $7 million per year, and he doesn't play. He's not good at all. And then I have some ones here that I'll save for after I make my. This is just going to be a really spicy one. On my spicy ones list, I had. I need your attention for this. He's not going to be my pick.
Okay.
But are we sure Darius Garland's worth that money?
Ooh, not what I thought you were. Not the high-paid guard I thought you were going to bring up.
Darius Garland makes $43 million in the last year of his deal, and has been the last 2 years in a complimentary role. Has not been what I expected, especially this year.
For a while, I was like I believe in Darius Garland.
I still like Darius Garland as a player, to be clear, but I'm
a
little worried.
I'm Homer in the hedge with Darius Garland a little bit. I'm slowly fading into the hedge. A little bit. Like where I'm a little less vocal about how much I support Darius Garland and Jared. I guess what I'm saying is Jared Allen innocent. Is it Mobley and Garland? Will's kind of been saying this, and he might be cooking on that one.
So here's the deal: We always were like, Donovan Mitchell's better than Darius Garland. It's ridiculous how people talk about him.
Yeah.
But this might just be Garland having a bad shooting year, to be completely honest with you. Like, he's not a 33.9% three-point shooter.
No.
He shot 39, 38, and 41 in the previous 3 seasons. And he's still a good passer. But, you know, defensively, he's a small guard. Like, he tries really hard, and he's actually good at some team defense stuff, but he's still a small guard, and those guys will always get targeted in the playoffs. And offensively, he really dropped off a cliff in the playoffs last year, which, like I said, it's frightening considering how much money he makes and where I thought he would be in his now age 24 season. I'm not giving up on Darius Garland. I'm just saying he makes a lot of money for a guy that has made one all-star team and I figured was going to be a regular all-star. But now, like, not only do you have, like, he wasn't even really in the all-star conversation this year, but you also have the fact that, like, Maxey and Brunson have just passed him now.
Oh, like, easily.
So like, he's not even going to make all-star teams in the future. Like, there's basically no chance he makes all-star teams unless they trade Donovan Mitchell and he gets back to where he was 2 years ago. And he's making 34 this year, 36 the next year, 39, 42, and 44 in a few years. Now, once again, good player. It's a lot of money. Can I see it?
Can I see it?
Can I see it? So yeah, that's just that was a spicy one I had on here.
That's a good one. I like that.
I don't think this one's as spicy, but just an honorable mention here because he's been playing better recently. The reason why I didn't include this one is because, like, half of this contract isn't even guaranteed. It's Zion Williamson. Like, Zion's good. Zion's still another. He's kind of in the same situation.
Yep.
But he is not. He's not someone that is living up to the contract that we thought he would when he signed it, and he has been available. But the real out here is that, like, all this money is not guaranteed. Like, they could, they pretty much a thing came out that was like, it's not really like they could just get rid of him if they wanted to, and it's easily movable. So that's not really a bad contract.
And because he also still has that upside, at least theoretically.
Sure.
So, yeah.
He might maybe you know, they rebuild the team in his image and he's healthy and everything works out.
Everything's fine. Yeah.
This one I saved this one for last.
Okay.
Someone said in the Discord they're shocked that you didn't say this one.
Okay, so
take a guess. Take one guess.
Because we still haven't mentioned the guy I was trying to pick between him and Ayton.
Okay.
The other guy I was considering, and I almost regret not picking here, was Damian Lillard.
So it actually isn't Dame, but people did say in the Discord you were going to bring up Dame, and honestly, Dame, I don't even think it's a spicy one to say Dame's contract is.
I think it's bad. I think like it's bad. Like the counting stats are there, and I know he made the All-Star team and everything like that. But like, I don't think it's a coincidence that he got on the Bucks and they immediately had like their most Mickey Mouse like
defense,
weird fake season of all time, because he's just like he might be like the quiet Zach LaVine guy. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean,
what if Zach LaVine was clutch? Like
$45 million this year, $48.7 million next year. Yep. $58.5 million the following year and 63.2 player option in 26-27. I think he's going to pick that one up. I agree with you. I mean, honestly, if we had went 15 picks, I mean, the only reason I didn't bring him up is because he's still currently an all-star-ish level player. And the Bucks are a top 3 seed, and like he's at least had some moments in time. But you're right. You're objectively right that like this one has a chance to age worse than a lot of the ones that we even talked about. Like, it's a really bad contract. But this is the one that I'm shocked that you didn't draft, and I'm shocked that I'm drafting it. And I actually really like this player, and I totally understand why they signed this extension. But Anthony Davis, come on down.
Okay, let's go.
See, someone said in the comments, people said in the Discord they were shocked you didn't take him because, one, you're a Lakers hater, but two,
I'm so objective about the Lakers. I'm so objective.
You're a Lakers hater. And like, I love it. I think AD is a great player. I think that he's been more available than he's ever been this year. This is the first time with the Lakers that he's played as many. He's played 55 games so far this year.
Yeah.
Like, he's going to play 70 games probably this season, at least. Yeah. And credit to him for getting healthy and staying in shape and all that shit. That's awesome. But
for the Lakers so far in his career, he's played 62 games, 36 games, 40 games, 56 games, 55 games so far this year. To me, this year is the outlier, and he's 30. And when healthy, he was probably the biggest reason they made the Western Conference Finals last year. So I don't want to say 80 when healthy is great, but the odds that he's as healthy as he is this year into his 30s is incredibly low for me. And there's a chance that he's already been declining on offense. I know he's having a good offensive season, but it's not really translating to their team's offense being great, which has always been the thing with AD is he's a great defensive player, maybe the best defensive player in the NBA. And the offense is he's not an engine. So maybe they get Trae Young this offseason and then he's awesome again next year and this looks stupid, but he's making a lot of money. He's going to be making, all right. So this year he makes 40 million. That's fine. Next year, 43. That's fine too. In 2 years, he's going to make 60 million. The year after that, 65. And he will be, I think the second player other than Giannis to make $70 million in a season. You're going to be paying age 34 Anthony Davis $70 million.
Man, that is really scary. That's really scary.
I understood why they did it, but it's wild.
That's really scary. And honestly, those numbers are a little higher than what I had in my head. I honestly didn't even look at AD that much.
He's making almost $300 million on this contract.
Yeah, I didn't. I kind of thought it was just 60. So my thinking here is I think that Anthony Davis is still going to be in the zone, unlike Damian Lillard. Even as he's getting older and he's going to miss more games, he's still a guy who's going to be when he plays guy is a genuine difference maker, both in the playoffs and in a other context. I mean,
there are 4 defenders in the NBA where if they're on the court, you're going to have a top 5 defense, and it's Anthony Davis, Giannis, Embiid, and Gobert. That's really the 4 guys. Yeah. That's the argument for Anthony Davis still giving you value on this contract.
Yeah. So Anthony Davis, what I would say is that the last 2 years of Anthony Davis's contract will could be worse than be horrific, terrible. Damian Lillard has a similar thing, but even Kat and Jaylen Brown, when their contracts are really bad and you're paying them $60 million in the last years, they'll still probably be decent-ish players. I think the worst case scenario is them having a Tobias from 3 years ago season. You know what I'm saying? A Tobias Harris style thing. Anthony Davis could just not give you anything on a $70 million contract in 2 years. But I do think
4 years he's making $70 million.
Yeah.
4 years from now.
So well, I'm saying the last 2 years, because I do think this year and the next 2 years, I kind of trust
the first 2 years of this contract are fine.
Yeah. So I think it'll be, and I honestly think and I think his age 33 season, I think he'll still be viable, but I think it's 34, 35 is where we get a little shaky. So,
let's change the board here a little bit. Joint pick at pick 10, we'll take Damian Lillard. 11th, we'll take Anthony Davis. Because as Aaron, who is a Bucks fan, is pointing out in the comments, Dame has shot over 50% from the field in only 19 of his 53 games this year, which for an aging guard with his defense, there's a chance that contract is that last year of his contract might just he might be a buyout guy in a few years. I know right now it seems insane because he made the All-Star team and is still one of the 25, 30 best players in the NBA. But the history of small guards with ab core injuries that he had, plus all of the physical limitations he already has, the chances are that probably ages worse than even this AD contract.
It's not that weird because we've already picked 3 current All-Stars.
Yeah. Well, someone said that in the Discord. They were like, when has a current All-Star ever really been that bad? When has their contract ever really been that bad? And I'm like, yes, that is true, but most of these contracts haven't even started. Karl-Anthony Towns and Jaylen Brown's contracts don't start until next year.
Yeah, and that's why they're
crazy. That's why they're and I think in a few years with this new CBA,
we're going to see less and less contracts like this.
Well, and that's the other thing is I think what people have to understand too is it's like there's not as many like mid-sized like dog shit contracts. Like there's not like an Evan Turner contract out there anymore. There's not the Alan Crabb contracts and stuff like that anymore because teams are only really spending money on their stars. And that's kind of what the CBA and the league is kind of moving towards. So you end up the contracts that can really hurt you are betting big on guys to be all-stars and those guys not really being all-stars. Because like the other contracts, like you're like, another good one is RJ Barrett is like one of the worst contracts in the NBA.
Yeah.
They were still able to move him not that much because he's a wing. Even though he's bad and
he's
actively
from Canada.
Makes work, he's from Canada, and he plays a wing position. It's like Wiggins, you know what I'm saying? People talk themselves into Wiggins for like a similar like reason and role, So it really is the kind of the results of this draft bear out that I think we're betting, and I think smartly, I think we're right about this, that it's going to be a lot of the bad contracts are going to be high, big name players.
Yes.
Just as as part of the new CBA, the fact that the salary cap is not going to be going up as much, or probably won't, as kind of some of the streaming and, people kind of come back down to earth. They have to renegotiate the ESPN contract, some of this other stuff where there's going to be less money sloshing around the league. I think these contracts that we picked are going to be like really damaging, like down the line.
Also, just recent history. What does recent history tell us? Who are the players that get bought out of these massive contracts? They're almost always aging stars.
Yeah.
Russ, Wall, whoever, or they are guys that were probably never really worth that money in the first place, like Andre Drummond, who, one of the few guys to get bought out of a max contract because the league just moved past that kind of big. And the majority of these dudes that do end up getting bought out or having bad contracts in the long term are usually due to injury, age, or the fact that they just never were really worth the money all that much in the first place. So, and even if they're worth, like I said, if you're worth 30 million and you're getting paid 60 million, it's just going to be really hard for teams to take on these contracts in the future. So,
no, I mean, a bunch of the worst contracts in the NBA over the last 3 years were, like you said, were guys that just didn't play games, but were all-stars at some point. Guys like John Wall, guys like
Klay Thompson,
now Klay Thompson and Bradley Beal, but Russell Westbrook, Ben Simmons, guys who were these incredible players. That's what makes for a really bad contract. So
some of it is just random and luck, but some of it is you can actually forecast and kind of figure out which ones it is. Last few things before we get out of here, and I watched the Sixers get destroyed. By the way, last time I didn't watch the Sixers, they won, and then I watched them and they lost. So they won the Cavs game on Friday. They lost the Bucks game on Sunday. Sixers and Celtics are playing tonight. Once again, without Joel Embiid, it should be a lot of fun. But the ones with the potential to be bad, this is just the last thing before we get out of here. Pascal Siakam's contract, when he signs this offseason, just whatever he gets.
Check that out. Yeah. Peep that.
They're 500 with him, and I think they're figuring things out. Hallie's starting to get healthy. They did just lose yesterday to the Raptors, but they've been better recently, I should say. I think they're 6-3 over the last 9 games or something. That contract is fine now, but if he got traded because he wants that big payday, and the Pacers are willing to give him that big payday, this is probably going to be worse than the Karl-Anthony Towns and Jaylen Brown contract. If he gets that full payday, if he gets it, not he can't get the full supermax because they didn't draft him, but it's going to be close to that number. And he's 30 years old, I believe, and a guy who is a good player and, sub all-star-ish, borderline all-star guy. But those are the contracts that generally age poorly. And he is a guy that's always been historically kind of reliant on athleticism. So that usually doesn't age super well into your 30s, although it has gotten better over the last handful of years. So Pascal Siakam's one to keep an eye on. LaMelo Ball is another one. Are we sure? I'm
not.
He's injured all the time. he's never available. And like, he hasn't even started the 5-year max extension.
I have 2 more also.
I have another one, but both no.
Okay. You go first then.
So LaMelo is just availability, and like, is he going to be available? And I'm skeptical that he is. And do the Hornets keep him on this contract? Do they trade him this offseason and try to get out ahead of it?
I think they should.
I think they will.
Yeah.
I think they'll at least explore the market, let's say. Similar to what the Pelicans did with Zion this past offseason. I think that's what they'll probably do. Are we sure Cade Cunningham?
Ooh, not what I thought you were going to say, but I like that.
Does he get the max extension this offseason?
Yes, unquestionably. I think especially if Troy Weaver's there. If Troy Weaver's not there, maybe not. But
Cade has played much better recently when he's been healthy, and the shot is falling, of course. He's looked awesome. They're still losing with him at a historic rate, even though the games are much closer. And they got jobbed out of like honestly 2 games recently.
I was gonna say I watched the end of the Knicks game, and Asar Thompson just got fucking tackled.
Yeah.
That was like nothing happened, which was insane. Yeah.
So that is the one element of it. The other element is the Magic game. Paolo traveled at the end of the game. They didn't call it. They called the M1 on Cade. Look, I think Cade's going to settle in to be a fine player, and he's shown enough this year that like he's probably worth extending. I think that I'm just hard pressed to find a guy where you win. What have they won? 4 games with him this year? 5 games with him this year? And like, yes, they're treating him like he's Luka Doncic when he isn't, and that's probably a big part of it. But like, what are you maxing him for then? Like, I think that his style extension should probably look more like what Lonzo Ball's extension look like than like Anthony Edwards, at least until he proves it. And if he doesn't want to take that contract, then wait a year. You're like, with the Pistons history of fucking up, you really can't risk doing this again. And like, he just hasn't proven to be consistently good enough for me to be like full max, no question.
You're absolutely right.
Yes.
They will full max him, and in 3 years, they will trade Jaylen Brown because they don't have the money to extend him.
They'll. I mean, once again, I think that the comp for him has always been Andrew Wiggins. It's Wiggins.
He's better than Wiggins. He's better than Wiggins.
Okay, but Wiggins got extended when he wasn't worth it. They never won. Dude, their record is like at a certain point, their record, they've won 4 games with him, and they've won 4 games without him. I think. I will say the league is also like way better than it was. Sure,
like Wiggins was doing that,
but they won like 25 games a year. The Pistons are historically bad. Someone please tell me their record with Cade. Like,
it's bad.
Once again, it's not all his fault, but like they've played like a normal team without him, and they've been just a normal bad team when he doesn't play. They are 4-6 without Cade this year, and like 4-45 with him. It's not insane to be like, hey, we should probably wait to max this guy until we can win 20 games with him. I think they already did that at one point, but still, my point is, it's just, I'd be worried about it. And I think everyone's going to say, oh, that's a no-brainer. And I just don't think it is at all. So anyway.
Shout out. So the story for those of you guys that don't know about the Andrew Wiggins, how he got that extension. Minnesota Senate minority leaner Glenn Taylor, who used to own the Timberwolves, sat Andrew Wiggins down before he gave him the max contract, told him to look in his eyes and tell if he was worth the money. And Andrew Wiggins did it, and Glenn said, "Good enough for me," and signed him to that extension, which is just awesome. That's like real Republican mindset, to be like, I looked that man in his eyes.
He was honest.
He was honest. Yeah.
This is why you can't trust the youth.
No, you can't. You can't. The Zoomers these days, they love being on their phones and lying to your face. I know Wiggins is a millennial, but
no. But in all seriousness,
yeah,
if they don't draft Wiggins and they don't max Wiggins, they probably don't get Ant.
Yeah, that's true.
At least they got Ant. Because they were bad enough that they were just like, we can get the number 1 overall pick. So,
real quick before we get out of here, can I do my 2?
Yes.
Just those Clippers guys. I just think that's interesting. I'm just going to be keeping an eye on that one.
Which one? Harden or Paul George or Kawhi?
Well, Kawhi, I looked at Kawhi's extension. Kawhi's is because I looked at Kawhi's for bad contract because he's got $50 million the next 3 years.
He's Kawhi Leonard, though.
He's Kawhi Leonard. You know, like
I know he doesn't. He's not healthy a lot, but when he is, goddamn, he's good.
It's not a good contract.
Yeah,
it's not a good contract because he just misses too many games. But I took him out of consideration. Paul George does not have a Kawhi Leonard level impact. I'm just interested to see what he gets paid. It probably won't be more than Kawhi Leonard, which take him out of this. I'm just interested to see what James Harden in LA getting a bag as the third player on a team. I'm monitoring those situations. I'm monitoring those for some.
Will Paul George be on the Clippers is the better question in my opinion. Or do they just say we'll just save some money, try to get role players instead?
Yeah. And
build around Kawhi Leonard and James Harden.
Because you're moving to a new, you put your new boats out there, your new you got your new logos, all the other stuff, you're getting ready to move. Those guys have you over a barrel and they know it.
Yep.
Can't move into a
You're doing promo picks with them?
Yep. I'm just saying. Interesting. Let's get just something to keep an eye on.
We'll see. By the way, I said it on the Patreon pod, and I have felt even better since we recorded it. Yep. I'm fully out on the Clippers.
Okay, let's go.
Completely out. I actually think
we said that before the year. We were so smart.
I said I don't want to be loosey with the football. I'm kind of buying back in. I'm done. But do you know what the record of the Clippers was in December and January? It was basically identical to what the Sixers were last year in December and January.
You were telling me this that who was it? Chiodo said this or someone?
No, I discovered it's the same exact thing. And Harden at this point in his career, his body is just not built to play 80 games anymore. And like the thing with Harden and the difference between Paul George and Kawhi and Harden is that Harden won't take off games. He'll just play through whatever is nagging him. And his body just doesn't hold up in the same way. And Harden has struggled recently, but it's more like he'll have like a random bad, like 1 for 8 game or something where he like shoots terribly. Paul George is not really, I just think all of them, I can't trust them. They're a very good team when fully healthy. And I don't think that fully healthy team will ever exist in the playoffs.
No. So something to keep an eye on. Look forward to drafting James Harden and his
next year.
3-year, $150 million extension next year. So
exactly. Someone said Kyrie in the comments. I know Kyrie hasn't been super available, but he only makes like 30. Doesn't he only make like 30 something million a year?
Yeah,
it's also a shorter deal. It's only a 3-year deal.
It's higher than it's 37 million. But there's only 2 more years after this year, so 40 and 42. Again, not a good contract, but you know.
Yeah, I don't think it's great, but I also think that when Kyrie is healthy, the Mavericks have been very, very good. The problem is he's never healthy. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
But yeah. So just to recap here: number 1 pick Bradley Beal, number 2 pick Jordan Poole, Andrew Wiggins number 3, Zach LaVine number 4, Karl-Anthony Towns number 5. By the way, at one point the Wolves had Wiggins, LaVine, and Cat all on the same team. I just want to
that's pretty awesome. That's pretty awesome.
I
also want to point out that genius Bob Myers responsible for 2 of the 3 worst contracts we drafted so far. So shout out to genius puppet master Bob Myers.
Just riding it out with another job that he definitely deserves, that he's really good at ESPN right now too.
Yeah, exactly.
So, like I said, LaVine, Cat, Jaylen Brown, Sabonis, Ben Simmons, DeAndre Ayton, Damian Lillard, and a joint pick of Damian Lillard and Anthony Davis, which was the spicy one. But yeah, this was fun. Thank you for joining. Let me go tune in to watch the Sixers get absolutely destroyed, and sign up for the Patreon if you want to hear our episode later in the week. Thank you for tuning in. If you watched on playback, we appreciate it. Talk soon.
Peace.